Chairperson, Honorable Chairperson. Good afternoon, members. My presentation is going to look at how SEMRA is going to support in revenue collection and facilitation of trade and travel. I'll quickly speak to year-to-date performance, looking at the revenue collections. So for the month of January to September 2023, we had a target of 11 trillion and 79 billion, and it was 12.009 trillion, and we collected 11.079 trillion, giving us a deficit of 7%. And probably just to speak quickly to that deficit, you will note that in Q2 there was a jump in the exchange rate, and also fiscal pronouncements that were made, which affected the revenue collections, especially for Q2 and going into Q3. And you also note that there were cash flow constraints which affected companies, and performance to Q2 was okay. We had adjusted our target to a constant price so that we could try and match the developments on the exchange rate framework. As we started the year, we started off on an exchange rate of 467, and which grew by the end of June. I think we were around 5,000. So what we have done was to adjust our figures, but we only did the adjustment in Q2. So going into Q3, I think we are strained in terms of our capacity to collect going forward. So Ministry of Finance then adjusted the figure for collection to 22 trillion from the original 4.7 trillion dollars, which was the budget that we had received in January. So we are currently working with 22 trillion as our target to year end for 2023. And to date, we are around 12 trillion in terms of collection, so we're still shy of 50% in terms of our revenue collections for this year. So going forward, we participated in the macroeconomic discussions with Ministry of Finance, and there is a projected revenue collection of 44 trillion, which is an increase of 100% from the current status. However, what is critical to note is that when the major drivers of this revenue for us is the exchange rate, and the ministry is projected an exchange rate of 6.47% for the year 2024. So what we then did is to review and try and see our capacity in terms of the economic performance. You'll note that the major drivers of our revenue is mining sector, and we have seen a trajectory whereby mineral prices have gone down significantly. And if you look at the mining sector, the PGM sector is our major revenue contributor, and we have prices decreasing by more than 24%, and there's a projection that will continue to decrease. We have also, one of our major industry contributor is also the retail wholesale, and you've also noted the developments where there's deformalization, where the large retailers are crying foul because of the emergence of the tax shop. And the tax shop for us, it's a serious challenge to revenue collection, because we are operating in a cash economy where the amount monies are not banked, where there is poor record keeping, and for us it becomes a serious challenge for us. The other sector is the agricultural sector. The agricultural sector for 2023, I think there was relatively good performance, but going forward with the anticipated El Nino, it also creates challenges for us to collect. However, we are cognizant of our role and mandate, and in that we are putting in, I think we want to tackle this 44 trillion going forward from a or perspective, we're looking at strengthening the organizational capacity. And in that, we're looking at how we have started the projects which are speaking to strengthening of the organization. From the domestic taxes side, we are currently implementing the tax and revenue management system, which we have called TAMS, which we are implementing in a phased approach. We have implemented the first 2 modules, and we are hoping to implement the last 6 modules by end of October. This system is funded by Treasury and AFDB to the tune of $12 million. We are also upgrading our Ascoda system, which is the core system for our customs function. And together with that, only Ascoda is wholly funded by Treasury. We also have the single window, which will also help us strengthen our capability at the borders to collect revenues. We are also implementing drones in the first approach. We've also purchased the scanners, but it's also in a first approach. We are also looking at ensuring that we maintain our staff members, give them competitive salaries, because they are handling cash. So there is a risk of pollution there. So in terms of our budget proposals, we're also looking at how best we can retain them. We are also benchmarking our operations with other revenue authorities, and on that perspective, we are tracking a tax to GDP ratio of 17.92. I think this is given the GDP figures is projected by Ministry of Finance and also the revenue collections that they are expecting. And the 17.92, I would also want to advise that it is within the benchmarks, the African benchmarks. We have other countries which are doing exceptionally well, but I think for us 17% is quite reasonable. So when you then look at our proposals, I would want to say we submitted our budget request late, and we haven't had a response from Minister of Finance. So maybe I can speak to what we've submitted, which hasn't been confirmed. So we were guided accordingly by Minister of Finance in terms of how we're to present or to prepare our budget for 2024. And we used their exchange rate, and we did a markup, a 50% adjustment on that. So I'll speak to the staff cost. So our request to Ministry, given an exchange rate of 6.547, we are looking at equivalent of $121,760,723, which would be equivalent to 797 billion. For operational costs, we have got an operational cost of $61,190,005, which is equivalent to 400,635,438,737, giving us a subtotal of 182,950,728, equivalent to 1.197 trillion. What we have also made requests on capital equipment that I was alluding to, and we have a capital request of 88,916,691, giving us a total of 582 billion. So in all our requests, given the ministry exchange rate is 1.78. We had also made another request, because we're also looking at 2023 performance movement in the exchange rate. We started off, like I alluded to, 467, and we are currently at around 5,000. So we also did an adjustment where we were looking at an exchange rate of, an average exchange rate of 8.647 for the year. So our budget, our option 2 was to then get a total of support of 2.3 trillion. But I think the major driver of our budget request would be our staff costs, and secondly, our capex costs. And if you look at our ICT, which is driving our strategy, we are digitalizing heavily, and we are doing a lot of integrations with our stakeholders to ensure that we pull on data that will then allow us to do data analytics, I think, which is one of the strategies that will ensure that we are able to collect, especially on the formal environment, we're able to optimize collections. And I think one key issue probably that members who might be wanting to hear is how are we going to tackle the informal sector. So on the informal sector, we benchmarked with other tax jurisdictions, and mainly they are working on block management where you deploy resources on the ground. But what is peculiar about Zimbabwe is the limited infrastructure around where business operations are made. So we can go in, if we don't know the address, if people are mobile, then it becomes very difficult to collect. So what we have done is to engage other stakeholders, other government stakeholders, and especially the local councils, because the local authorities are the ones who then allocate places of business. Once we have businesses that can be identified as a place of business, it becomes easy for us. What we have also done, we have made legislative proposals to enhance our capability to then tackle the cash economy. So we submitted our fiscal reforms to Minister of Finance, and I think they will be tabled by the Honourable Minister in terms of what else we can do. But I think for us, the major game changer in order to deal with the informal sector is the across government approach. If we don't have that, we are totally incapacitated to effectively deal with the informal sector. So we are yet to deploy this, but we really want support, especially to get them up and running, because I think that will be the biggest game changer, especially to deal with smuggling. We have implemented standards that I've alluded to, but we still require additional. If you noted when RGM airport was officially opened, we didn't have adequate scanners to then deal with issues of mineral currency and other smuggling activities that can be done through airports. So in our budget, we've included baggage scanners, we've included scanners for the other border posts, which is other than Beitbridge and Chirundu, which have been capacitated before. The other issue that will come through our budget is the accommodation and border costs for our staff members. When we started, I think currently we have a staff housing shortage of around 543 units across the 17 border posts that we're operating from. And in our liaison with Ministry of Infrastructure, they've given us the areas of focus, which still gives us a deficit in terms of our operations. And if you noted, Chirundu will be going 24-hour operations, and currently with the 16-hour operations, we do not have adequate accommodation for our staff members. Same applies to FOBS. So with FOBS, again, we are pushing for a 24-hour operations, subject to confirmation by Mozambique, which we think will then be able to assist with minimizing, I think, the delays that are being faced at FOBS, over and above possible infrastructure development on the Mozambican side to deal with the blockage coming through the small bridge on the Mozambican side. So staff accommodation is also critical for us to ensure that we expedite turnaround times at our ports of entry. I think on that note, Chairman, I will pause.
colleagues, you heard the presentation. I think this time around we'll take a round of questions so that at least when she will respond to all the issues. Yeah, so let me give you this opportunity to respond to the presentation, the submissions, what you have noted, any points of clarification.
Thank you, Commissioner. First, let me give you some good marks. One time, sometime 2 years ago, when I went to Ghana, they were praising you, Zimbabwe, for being ahead of them in terms of resource mobilization and strategies to collect monies from the informal sector. So don't share yourselves. Stand on your feet. Other countries are emulating you. Yes, my first question is, you talked about the housing problems. I remember last time I was in the last parliament, there was an issue about floods at the Bedford border post. I was once there, the situation was very pathetic. I wanted to know if anything has been done so far using the 2023 budget. Also, Kasungula, I was once in Kasungula. The accommodation issue was also pathetic. I would also want to know if anything on the positive side has been done. Another issue is, I really understand that you are the collection arm in terms of revenue of this government. And our success in terms of economic development lies in the hands of Zimra. There was an issue of retention fund. On the funds that you collect, there was a request from your offices that you wanted at least to retain a certain percentage so that you are always liquid, so that you are not in typical problems, since we depend on you in terms of resources. Has anything been done on that one? Thank you.
I wanted to hear from the Commissioner General about as they move towards the e-platform and everything. Are they really reliable for now? Because sometimes they become a problem to customers, especially those want to get their facility on the internet. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Commissioner General. My question to the CG is, she mentioned that the mining sector, the wholesalers, those doing retail and agriculture industry are the biggest revenue contributor. That is right. So I wanted to know, what is Zimra doing to these three sectors to make sure that we keep on getting more revenue from them. And another question is, she mentioned that they bought drones, but the drones are not yet flying. I wanted to know, to understand, why are they not yet flying? Because we want to stop smuggling that is happening in those border posts. So these are my two questions.
Thank you, Honorable. Yeah, Commissioner General, let me. Okay. Yes, Honorable.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you also, our Commissioner General, for the presentation. You mentioned something to do with some tax reforms. I wanted to understand if those tax reforms include any tax policy changes, and what are your anticipation in terms of how those tax policy changes will improve our revenue productivity. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Honorable.
Thank you very much, Chairman. I would like to applaud the Commissioner General and team for finding strategies to get revenue from informal traders and engaging local authorities. This is highly commendable. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Honorable. If any other, yes, Honorable.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Commissioner General. I've been working on figures here, and initially, I had you commissioners mentioning a target which you were given of 12.00 trillion, and you managed to raise 11-point-something trillion, giving us a deficit, though it is an acute deficit. Now that for this year you were given a target of 22 trillion collection for 2023, and the projection for next year, 2024, is now 100% increment to 44 trillion. Given that so far you haven't met the current year slow target, maybe, may you give us in terms of percentage maybe, or on how you are going to try and manage to meet the 44 trillion, which is double the current year's projection of revenue collection that we failed to do, or that maybe you are failing to achieve. Again, may I ask on the measures that we have so far on trying to curb the problem of deformalization of the formal sectors that were, or the formal outlet that you used to collect revenue from. As you mentioned that the retail outlets is one of the most important source of finance in terms of your collection. What are the measures you have, and what are the reasons? Are you gathering information pertaining to how, why is deformalizing, and how are these evading tax, and how you can maybe make them pay the tax? I mean, the former retail outlets that are now deformalizing. In those informal sectors, informal sector businesses, what measures do we have to encourage them to formalize and also contribute to tax, so as to boost your revenue base in terms of the tax base? Thank you.
You mentioned that in your budget, so far your budget, I think, about 1.7 trillion. I don't know if there's any ceiling that you were given for finance, so that you can try to marry the two, the variance. And then you also mentioned something on data analytics. At some point, I was in the diaspora, and even though one would try not to pay tax, the system would just detect that your bank account had so much, and then it will automatically tax. I don't know how far you have deployed artificial intelligence. Just to say, suppose the maximum allowable funds in one's bank account is, say, 50 trillion. Beyond that, the burden is on the person who is holding the account to prove that it was not coming from the business. So I don't know how far you have gone with regards to deployment of artificial intelligence, and also your integration with the banking system to ensure that even if a person has got 20 bank accounts, there will be a way of integrating them.
Also progress that we've made from 2022 Bay Bridge, we managed to construct an additional 36 units. We have a block of flats on stand 480, where we constructed 36 self-contained one-bedroom sitter for our staff members. And over and above that, we bought 77 units from the Zimboda village. So we allocated 77 units. On Kazungula, we finalized 3 by 4 units, self-contained units. And I think for Kazungula, I think we have sufficient accommodation for that quarter post. For Churundu, we are hoping by end of year we should add an additional 16 units, but we still have a huge deficit for Churundu. So in terms of progress, I think we have done Bay Bridge, Kasungula, Churundu. We also have a project which is currently running for FOPs, where we have 16 units again for our FOP staff, but still it's not adequate for the current resources that we have. And also speaking to that, you note that with the border development that have come in, has been done, there's traffic separation. And that traffic separation brings in additional requirements for human resources to man those areas. So with Bay Bridge, we had to add more staff members in order to cater for the 3 lines. And with the plans in place by government to modernize Churundu, Plumtree and Nyamapanda and Forbes, it means that our numbers will definitely increase. Though we are looking at how best we can leverage on digitalization vis-a-vis the numbers that we're carrying as an institution. The next item was regarding the 3% cost of collection that we have benchmarked. So discussions have been ongoing, I think, from the last meeting where I think our union was called in to make a presentation. Senior management was also called in to make a presentation, and also Minister of Finance. And we have had discussions, back and forth discussions with Treasury to speak to how much they can give us. So I can say the discussions are still open, but we haven't resolved the matter. So Treasury has been funding us on a need basis. Whenever we have an urgent issue, they also cater for our requirements. But we haven't fixed a percentage as our budget for operations. But we continue to pursue the matter so that we are optimally funded. And yes, Zimra is implementing digital solutions to ensure that we deal with the corruption issues, strengthen our systems and our processes, and also create capacity and ability for us to deal with big data. And so the issue has been how is this digitalization enabling ease of doing business? You note that we have done an evaluation of our systems, and we have come up with a digitalization strategy which seeks first and foremost to ensure that we spruce up and update our core systems, which is the SCUDA system for customs operations and the domestic taxes system, which we are implementing our terms solution. We also have, I think in terms of ease of doing business, both systems have got e-facilities where people can log in from the comfort of their homes and be able to transact. One key issue, I think that will be pertinent, that we'll probably want to see is the issue of connectivity. We can have very nice systems, but without connectivity, we still have those challenges. So the issue of third-party risk, third-party dependencies also affect our capability to then create an optimal ease of doing business within our systems. So the upgrades that we are currently doing is our internal response to ensuring that our systems respond to the requests or the requirements by the users. We do our quarterly client satisfaction index, where we then ask where are the bottlenecks, where are the pain points from our customers, and we are trying to address that through the digital solutions. But like I alluded to, there are other external factors that will also need to be addressed to ensure that we change the user experience. And then the other person was speaking to, I think, my mention of certain sectors which contribute to our revenue. I just highlighted those three, but I think every sector is performing and we continue to monitor performance. You find that even if you look at mining sector, for example, we need to then disaggregate that data and focus on real subsectors of that particular sector, which might be on a growth trajectory vis-a-vis just probably looking at the holistic sector. So we do those analyses to ensure that we focus on growth areas and also collect and optimize revenue. If you see that our fiscal policy allows us to then go back and do audits, and on general audits are retrospective evaluation of the declarations that would have been made. So you might find that certain sectors will be on a downward trajectory in terms of growth, but again, we need to go back and ensure that the correct taxes were paid for the seasons prior. So in our approach, we are really looking at which sectors and subsectors give us better results and yield as we implement our strategies, which are limited. And I'll tackle the issue of drones and smuggling. I think the drones, is just to have a whole of a government approach. I think once we unlock that, we should be able to fly, because we are also flying the drones outside the designated border area where we are authorized to operate from. So the moment you go 200 kilometers, it's outside our purview per se. So we are also engaging other stakeholders who are responsible for managing the borderline. And Chairman, you also mentioned about unofficial border posts. We've not given up. We are collaborating with the security sector who are managing those areas to ensure that we plug those areas. And for me, drones will be a game changer, because once you have drones, you can then have capacity to react to any smuggling activities that will be happening on our borderlines. But I must say that it is a real challenge, and I think there is high level of smuggling that is happening, which is a serious leakage to revenue. So collaboration with the security sector for us will be a game changer. And on the tax reforms, our tax reforms generally this year we are focusing on how best we can ensure that we manage debt. We have a debt which has been ballooning, and part of the debt is really emanating from revenues like pay-as-you-earn, VAT, where people would have paid upfront, but what is only required is the taxpayer to remit the figures to the amounts to zero. So we are strengthening that area to ensure that we can collect on time and in full. And also we are also working on engagements with government ministries, departments and agencies to ensure that they enforce collection of tax on our behalf. We believe, yes, we are an agency, but we can't collect revenue on our own. We need to collaborate and work with others. And I think the other issue is just to further buttress or enhance our policy regarding cross-border transaction. In the past, we used to have multinational enterprises being the ones that were involved in cross-border transactions. But if you look at the current environment, it's cutting across the whole spectrum of small, medium, and large corporates who are doing cross-border transactions. So we are ensuring that we have a legislation that gives us ability to then interrogate transactions that are happening across our jurisdictions. And also the issue that I spoke about, formalization, we also made proposals that are speaking to staggered payments, because taxpayers find it heavy to do quarterly payments. So we are also advocating for them to make reasonable small payments towards the quarterly payments, so that we create an enabling environment. And then collection performance, yes. So we are just about 50% in terms of our 2023 target. And we still have Q4, we normally generate about 35% of the total collections for the year. But it still gives us, I think, a deficit of some sort, which we have put in place strategies, sector-based responses, audits. We have also been running a voluntary disclosure program, which we sought people to come in and make declarations, and we don't charge them penalties. Penalties, the Commissioner General is given the authority or discretion to waive part of it. So these are some of the initiatives that we've put in place.
My name is Tinashe Shibe, and I have maybe 1 or 2, 3 questions to ask, or maybe suggestions. I don't know. We'll see. Hi. Thank you for the presentation, Commissioner General. What I just want to ask is there anything that ZIMRA is doing to unearth officers involved in corruption in our borders without depending on law enforcement or your loss control department? I'm talking about maybe a system to identify or track illegal earnings from corruption, or the process that they probably invest, not in their names, or maybe companies registered under them. And then the illegal crossing points that the Honorable Chairperson also raised on. I'm just going to give an example, and then I'll try and give you the question out of it. I'm from Begbridge, and there are a lot of illegal crossing points manned by law enforcement. Just last week when I was coming to Parliament, I met a convoy of over 25 combis loaded with illicit cigarettes, headed for an illegal crossing point. So I wanted to ask, is there not something that ZIMRA can do to engage law enforcement to man these illegal crossing points, to try and curb the smuggling that goes through these illegal points? And then the third one, and maybe the last one, is, are we not focusing on improving digital systems for a few companies when we should focus on the sprouting tax rate that you mentioned? The fact that the systems that are developed don't end up being redundant or underutilized against the initial investment made into developing these systems. You just explained now the TAMS is integrated with banks and other systems, but then we have most traders being informal and they're not part of these systems. Is it not revenue that is going unnoticed?
Corruption. Corruption, I think ZIMRA has been one of the lead agencies that has been trying to be accountable and transparent in terms of what activities is happening, whether good or bad. So you find that our strategies, we have persuasive strategies, and we also have criminalization and penalizing of corruption activities. Probably I'll focus more on the penalization. You should note that ZIMRA to date has had 2 cases of asset forfeiture, successful asset forfeiture, where process of corruption have been attached and they are now under the management of asset forfeiture unit under the RRBZ. And so what we've been doing is collaborating with ZAC, and also we've established our internal loss control, which then looks at those cases, internal cases. But I also want to say, I think we would want support to say it takes 2 to tango. Yes, we can do so much, but if we are surrounded by people who've got a propensity to bribe, it becomes becomes a serious challenge. But I think what we are doing currently is to ensure that we identify cases, and we also had instances where officers will resign. The moment you start sniffing on them or they see that you're coming after them, they resign. But our attitude is to say, even if they resign and leave our employment, we still pursue those assets because they will be gotten from taxpayer money, which is supposed to be for social development of Zimbabwe. So this is our approach, and we continue to engage SAC because once they get out of employment, if we don't share information with SAC, then they go scot-free with those proceeds. So that is our approach, and I think we are getting traction in respect of this strategy. The issue of the illegal crossing points. So in terms of deployment on the borderline, it's a security zone. So the security forces are already deployed on the borderlines. So the issue that I was speaking to say, once you introduce drones, it means it can expose where there's facilitation happening at illegal port of entries. So once we unlock that area, I think there is a lot of noise around that. You mentioned 25 trucks. It looks like that is what is happening. Grand mafia, in smuggling, that is what is happening, and we need to have a better response. And I think in our discussion, we're also looking at probably motor vehicles as a reactionary vehicle might not be conducive because some of the roads are not motorable. So we might even need helicopters or other forms of reaction which are more, which will give us better traction. So collaboration for us will continue to be the game-changing initiative, and we are engaging strongly with the security sector to ensure that this better collaboration will mitigate further revenue leakages. So on digitalization, yes, I think the question has been coming in to say, are you digitalizing and spending a lot of capex on a few number of clients? But like I indicated, when we segmented our taxpayers, you then find that we have a large client office which has got about less than 800 taxpayers. They contribute slightly below 80% of the total domestic taxes revenue. They are only 700. Then the next medium clients, which are about 12,000, they contribute, I think, another 10 or so percentage points of our revenues. So when you look at that, it then creates, it gives us the opportunity to then deal with high impact collection strategies. Again, terms for us, it's not just about the taxpayer lodging a return, it's about accounting for the revenues that we report upon. So our Auditor General needs to come back and look at a system that he can audit, he or she can audit and say, yes, I validated that ZEMRA collected so much for this particular year. So those systems are still critical, and that investment for me is value added. Over and above the core systems, we've put in place the fiscalization data management system, which is also drawing or pulling data. We are also in sync with the government thrust of inclusivity. So we're also looking at utilization of the mobile platforms as other sources of payment.